Happy 80th birthday, Dad. I hope you'll be happy here. Those were the last words my daughter Jessica said to me as she dumped my suitcases at the front entrance of the nursing home. The automatic doors slid shut, cutting off the view of her taillights fading into the distance. And just like that, I was alone. 80 years on this earth, and this was my send-off. I'm Frank Patterson. I am 80 years old, but my mind is as sharp as a tack, and standing there in the sterile lobby of that place, I felt only one thing: rage. Pure, unadulterated rage. So do me a favor. Listen to this story all the way to the end and share it with anyone who needs a wake-up call. Then tell me which part really hit home for you. And let me know what city you're listening from, all right? Just an hour ago, I was sitting in my living room, waiting for my family to come over and wish me a happy birthday. It was my 80th, you know? A milestone for any man. But instead of cake, balloons, and hugs, what I got were 2 packed suitcases and an ultimatum. "You can't live alone anymore, Dad," Jessica told me, not even having the decency to look me in the eye. "We found this perfect place for you." A perfect place. As if I were some stray animal that needed to be kenneled. "And what if I don't want to go?" I asked, even though I knew my opinion didn't amount to a hill of beans. "It's not an option, Dad. It's already decided." Decided. Without asking me, without consulting me, as if 80 years of living didn't give me the right to decide my own fate. The taxi arrived because, of course, she couldn't even be bothered to drive me in her own car. A taxi, like I was just some stranger she was shipping off. During the whole ride, I kept thinking, how did we get here? How could my own daughter do this to me? But I was also thinking about something else, something she didn't know, something she was going to find out very, very soon. You know, it's funny how you spend your whole life building a legacy, thinking you're building it for the people you love, only to realize you were just building a nest egg for vultures waiting for you to drop. Now I'm standing here, in front of Serenity Meadows Senior Living, with my 2 suitcases and a heart full of disappointment. It's a nice place, I have to admit. Everything is spotless, the gardens are manicured, the walls are painted in soothing pastels, the kind of place where people deposit their problems so they can sleep soundly at night. A young nurse came over to greet me with that plastered-on smile they all wear in here. "Mr. Frank Patterson?" she asked, checking a clipboard. "That's me," I replied dryly. "Perfect. Come with me, please. We'll process your admission and then take you to see your room." Room. What a polite way to say cell. We walked down the hallway, and I saw other elderly folks sitting in chairs, some watching TV, others just staring into the void. This was supposed to be my future. Sitting in a chair waiting for someone to visit, knowing deep down they probably never would. "Right this way, Mr. Patterson," the nurse said, guiding me toward an office. "First, we need to do some paperwork, and then you'll meet the director." The director? Why did I need to meet the director? Probably so he could explain the rules of the prison where I was going to spend my final years. We entered a small room filled with forms and more forms, as if my entire life could be summarized in signatures and checkboxes. "Your room is number 247, she told me, handing over a small keycard. "Second floor, garden view. It's very quiet." Quiet. Of course it's going to be quiet. It's the place where they put old people so they don't bother anyone anymore. "Is there anything else I need to know?" I asked, just wanting to get this over with. "Well, in about an hour, the director will want to meet you personally. It's standard protocol for all new residents." Protocol. Everything here is protocol. As if we were inventory numbers instead of human beings. "Fine," I lied. "I'll be waiting." The nurse took me to my room, small but clean. A twin bed, a wardrobe, a nightstand, a single chair. 80 years of life boiled down to basic furniture. I put my suitcases on the bed and sat in the only chair in the room. Through the window, I could see the garden she mentioned. Nice, sure, but the safety latches on the windows reminded me that this wasn't my home. It was my containment unit. I thought about Jessica in that moment. She was probably back at her house by now, relieved to have solved the old dad problem. Maybe even popping a bottle of wine. We don't have to worry about him anymore. But she didn't know one important thing, something I never told her. Something that, in very short order, was going to change everything. It's a dangerous thing, underestimating the person who taught you how to walk. They think because we move slow, we think slow. Big mistake. Because there are things in life, my friend, that people do thinking they're so smart. Decisions they make without knowing all the consequences. And my dear daughter Jessica had just made the stupidest decision of her entire life. In an hour, when the director of this place comes to meet me, everything is going to become crystal clear. And then, then she is going to discover what it truly means to make a mistake. An hour later, there was a knock at my door. 3 soft, polite taps. Like everything in this place, even the knocking followed protocol. "Mr. Patterson, can we come in?" It was the nurse's voice from before, but now accompanied by someone else. "Come in," I answered, not bothering to get up from the chair. At 80 years old, I don't have to stand up for just anybody. The door opened and the nurse entered, followed by a man in his 50s, well-dressed, looking every bit the corporate manager. Navy blue suit, perfect tie, professional smile. The typical guy who runs these places like they're luxury hotels. "Mr. Patterson, let me introduce you to Mr. Reynolds, the director of Serenity Meadows," the nurse said with that sickly sweet voice they use for the elderly. This Reynolds character walked over with his hand extended. "Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Patterson. I hope you're feeling comfortable in your new home." Home. What a lying word. I shook his hand without much enthusiasm. "Pleasure, Mr. Reynolds. Please, have a seat," I said, pointing to the only other chair in the room. The nurse stood by the door like a sentry. Reynolds sat down and opened a file folder. "Well, Mr. Patterson, I wanted to meet you personally and explain a little about how we operate here at Serenity Meadows." "I'm all ears," I replied, though in reality I just wanted him to get out. "You see, we pride ourselves on providing the best care possible to our residents. We have recreational activities, physical therapy, a doctor on call 24/7, nutritious meals." While he rattled off his rehearsed speech, I studied him. There was something familiar about this man, but I couldn't quite place it. His face, his way of speaking, something rang a bell. "And we also organize family events, so you can maintain contact with your loved ones," Reynolds continued. Loved ones. The irony was thick enough to cut with a knife. "Family events?" I asked. "Like what?" "Well, we celebrate birthdays, anniversaries, special holidays. We always invite the families to come and—" "My birthday was today," I interrupted him. 80 years old. Do you see any family here celebrating with me?" Reynolds looked uncomfortable. He shuffled some papers in his folder. "Ah, yes, I see that today is your birthday." "Happy birthday, Mr. Patterson. I'm sure my family dropped me here like a bag of old clothes," I said directly. "So we'd better talk about other things." Silence hung heavy in the room. The nurse stared at the floor. Reynolds cleared his throat and went back to his papers. "Well, I also wanted to talk to you about the payments. I see here that your daughter has already covered the first month, but we need to discuss the following ones." "How much does it cost to stay here?" I asked. "It's $8,000 a month, Mr. Patterson. That includes room, board, medical care, and all activities." $8,000. Interesting. And if I can't pay? I asked, curious to see what he would say. Well, in those cases, we work with families to find alternatives. We have some assistance programs, but the reality is that if there is no way to cover the costs, we would have to, well, help the family find other options. Other options. What a polite way of saying you kick them to the curb. I understand, I said. And how long have you worked here, Mr. Reynolds? I've been at Serenity Meadows for 15 years, Mr. Patterson. I started as an administrator, and 5 years ago I was named director. 15 years, that explains why your face looked familiar. And do you like your job? I asked. Very much. It is very gratifying to be able to help people like you have a dignified and comfortable old age. Dignified old age, with families who abandon them and pay for them like they're pets in a kennel. You know what, Mr. Reynolds? I have a question that I'm very curious about. Of course, go ahead. Who is the owner of this place? Reynolds seemed surprised by the question. Well, it's a private corporation. The owner is, well, he is a very successful gentleman in construction. He has several facilities like this one. What is his name? The owner? Well, Reynolds looked uncomfortable. I'm not sure if that information is. Is it a secret? I asked with a smile he didn't understand. No, it's not a secret. His name is Frank Patterson. Mr. Frank Patterson. The nurse kept looking at the floor, oblivious to what had just happened, but Reynolds froze. He looked down at my papers again. Then he looked at me, then back at the papers. Excuse me, he said slowly. Can you repeat your full name for me? Frank Patterson, I answered calmly. Mr. Frank Patterson. I watched the color drain from his face. His hands started to tremble slightly as he reviewed the paperwork with more intensity. Frank Patterson? He repeated, as if he couldn't believe what he was reading. The same one? I confirmed. Reynolds shot up from the chair as if he'd seen a ghost. The folder slipped from his lap and papers scattered all over the floor. Oh my God, he murmured. I am the owner of this place. I finished the sentence for him. And I am also the old nuisance that his own daughter just abandoned here, paying $8,000 a month for the privilege. The nurse looked up, confused. Reynolds stood paralyzed, as if his brain couldn't process the input. Mr. Patterson, he stammered. I didn't know. Nobody told me. How is this possible? It is very possible, I said, standing up slowly from the chair. My dear daughter Jessica decided it was time to get rid of the annoying old man. What she didn't know is that the annoying old man happens to be her boss. And yours, too. Reynolds quickly crouched down to pick up the papers, his hands shaking visibly. Mr. Patterson, I need to call. You don't need to call anyone yet, I interrupted him. First, you and I are going to have a very interesting conversation about how my business is being run. Reynolds was still on the floor, gathering papers with trembling fingers. The nurse looked back and forth between us, understanding nothing. Miss, I said to the nurse, could you leave Mr. Reynolds and me alone? We have matters to discuss. Yes, of course, Mr. Patterson, she responded quickly and scurried out of the room, closing the door behind her. Reynolds finished picking up the papers and stood there, like a scolded schoolboy waiting for detention. Sit down, Reynolds, I ordered. It wasn't the resident talking to the director anymore. Now it was the employee facing the CEO. He sat on the edge of the chair, nervous. Mr. Patterson, I swear I didn't know that you... Nobody informed me that... Calm down, I interrupted. Nobody informed you because nobody knew. My own daughter doesn't know who I really am. Reynolds looked at me confused. She doesn't know? For her, I am just an annoying old man who worked his whole life without achieving anything important. A burden that had to be disposed of. But Mr. Patterson, you built this. You give jobs to more than 150 people. Yes, Reynolds. And apparently my daughter considers me so unimportant that she is paying me $8,000 a month to live in my own property. Reynolds ran a hand over his face. This is unbelievable. Unbelievable, I repeated. You know what is unbelievable, Reynolds? That my own flesh and blood brought me here like trash to be thrown out. I got up and walked to the window. The garden looked nice from here. I had invested a lot of money into making this place comfortable, dignified. I never thought I would end up being a resident of my own creation. Tell me something, Reynolds, I continued without turning around. How do you see the families who bring their relatives here? How do you view them? What do you think of them? Reynolds hesitated before answering. Well, I understand it's a difficult decision for families. Often they don't have another option. Don't lie to me, Reynolds. We are alone. Tell me the truth. I heard him shift uncomfortably in the chair. The truth is that many times I see families who could care for their parents at home, but they prefer to bring them here because it is more convenient for them. And what do you feel when you see that? It makes me sad, Mr. Patterson, because I see these folks waiting for visits that never happen, waiting for calls that never come. I turned to look at him. And now, what do you feel, knowing that I am one of those folks? Reynolds looked down. I feel terrible. You have given us jobs. You built this place to help others and your own family. Your own family treats you like a nuisance. I finished for him. Yes, he murmured. I went back to my chair and sat facing him. Tell me, Reynolds, who else knows my history here? Who else knows about my business? Well, the head administrator, Mrs. Higgins, knows you are the owner. Some of the doctors too, but the majority of the staff doesn't know who you specifically are. Perfect. And I want it to stay that way for now. For now? Yes, Reynolds, because we're going to conduct a little experiment. Reynolds looked at me with curiosity and nervousness. What kind of experiment? We are going to see what happens when my dear daughter Jessica comes to visit me. Because she will come? Do you know why? No, sir, she'll come because the guilt won't leave her alone. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but she will come. And when she comes, I want to see how she behaves with me, how she treats me, what she says to me. And then I smiled, a smile that Reynolds had probably never seen, because it wasn't the smile of a tender grandfather. It was the smile of a man who had built an empire by being smart, and when necessary, by being ruthless. After that, Reynolds, my daughter is going to learn a lesson she will never forget. Okay, Mr. Patterson. Reynolds looked worried. I hope you aren't thinking of doing something you might regret later. Regret? I laughed, but there was no mirth in it. Reynolds, do you have children? Yes, sir, 2. Do you love them? With all my heart. And do they love you? I believe so. Would you do anything for them? Without hesitation. Me too, Reynolds. I did everything for Jessica. I worked like a dog, sacrificed my comfort, my time, my money, everything so she would have a better life. I stood up again and walked toward the door. And do you know what my mistake was, Reynolds? No, sir. My mistake was believing that the love I gave her was going to be reciprocated. My mistake was thinking that the sacrifices I made for her meant something to her. But now I understand, Reynolds. Now I know exactly who my daughter is. And when a person shows you who they really are, You have to believe them. I opened the room door. For now, I want this to be handled with absolute normality. I am just another resident. I pay my $8,000 a month like anyone else. But, sir, that is ridiculous. You cannot pay to live in your own property. Of course I can, Reynolds. And I am going to do it, because I want my daughter to feel very comfortable with her decision. I want her to feel very smart for having solved the old dad problem. Reynolds stood up too. And then? Then, when she is very sure she did the right thing, when she is very calm with her new life without the burden of her father, then I am going to teach her what it really costs to abandon the person who gave you everything. What are you going to do? I walked out of the room and down the hall. Reynolds followed me. I am going to serve justice, Reynolds. And I assure you that when I am finished, my dear daughter Jessica is going to understand the true meaning of consequences. We arrived at the common area where some residents were watching TV. I sat in one of the chairs, just another grandpa abandoned by his family. Now go, Reynolds, and remember, to everyone here, I am just Frank Patterson, the new resident in room 247. Reynolds walked away, but before leaving, he turned one last time. Mr. Patterson, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Don't you think maybe your daughter will regret it? That maybe she will come to ask for forgiveness? I looked him straight in the eyes. Reynolds, there are things in life that aren't forgiven, and dumping your father on his 80th birthday is one of them. 5 days passed since I arrived at Serenity Meadows. 5 days living like a common resident, eating in the dining hall with the other seniors, participating in activities, pretending to be what my daughter thinks I am, a useless old man with no money and no power. And let me tell you something, friend. Those 5 days taught me more about human nature than I had learned in 80 years. During breakfast on the first day, I sat with Phil, a 75-year-old guy who had been there for 3 years. His family visits him once a month, if that. First time in a place like this? He asked while sipping his watery coffee. Yes, I answered. My daughter brought me. Ah, he said, nodding as if he understood perfectly. Mine too. She said it was for my own good. And what do you think? I think it was for her own good, not mine, he responded with a bitter smile. It's easier to pay $8,000 than to deal with an old dad. $8,000? My own daughter paying with my money to keep me away from her. In occupational therapy, I met Mrs. Carter, an 82-year-old woman with a story that broke my heart. Her only son had brought her here after selling the house where she lived. He needed the money for his business, she explained while we did puzzles. He said later he would take her to live with him. That was 2 years ago. And has he ever come? At first, he came every 2 weeks, then once a month. Now, the last time I saw him was Christmas of last year. Every story I heard was worse than the last. Families who promised to visit and never showed up. Children who kept their parents' properties and shipped them off to homes. Grandchildren who didn't even know their grandparents were alive. On the third day during lunch, I realized something that filled me with a cold, calculated rage. I had built this place thinking about giving dignity to the abandoned elderly. I had put my heart into every detail. The food, the rooms, the activities, the trained staff. I thought I was creating a sanctuary for people who had no other option. But the reality was different. This place had become a dumping ground of convenience for families who didn't want to deal with their responsibilities. And now, I was part of that refuse. On the fourth day, Reynolds came to see me in the afternoon. He sat next to me in the garden where I was reading a newspaper. How are you feeling, Mr. Patterson? he asked in a low voice. Like I'm living in a very revealing social experiment, I answered without looking up from the paper. Ah, have you thought about what you're going to do? All the time, Reynolds. All the time. Can I ask what? I folded the newspaper and looked at him directly. Tell me, Reynolds, how many of these residents have families who could care for them at home? Reynolds looked uncomfortable. Well, a high percentage. What percentage? Maybe 70%? 70%, I repeated. 70% of the people who are here don't need to be here. They are here because their families consider them inconvenient. Yes, Reynolds admitted. Do you know what that means, Reynolds? What does it mean? It means that I, without knowing it, built the perfect infrastructure for families to get rid of their problems with a clear conscience. Reynolds didn't respond. What could he say? My daughter is paying $8,000 a month to get rid of me, I continued, and she probably feels very generous for doing it. Very responsible, such a good daughter. Mr. Patterson? No, Reynolds. Let me finish. During these 5 days, I have seen the reality of what I created, and I have made a very important decision. You reach an age where you realize that sometimes doing the right thing means tearing down everything you built just to stop the rot from spreading. Which is? I stood up from the bench where we were sitting. I am going to dismantle all of this. Reynolds' jaw dropped. What? Serenity Meadows is going to close, Reynolds. This place is going to close, and the other 2 facilities as well. But, Mr. Patterson, there are people who really need it. The people who really need it will be relocated to appropriate places. But this business of family convenience is going to end. Reynolds stood up too, clearly upset. And the staff? The jobs? The staff will be compensated generously. You too. But this experiment is over. Why? Because I realized something, Reynolds. My mistake wasn't just raising an ungrateful daughter. My mistake was creating the perfect system for her and thousands like her to dispose of their parents without feeling guilt. I walked toward my room but stopped before entering. Do you know what is the saddest part of all this, Reynolds? No, sir. That when my daughter finds out I destroyed the place where she abandoned me, she is going to understand that her useless dad had more power than she ever imagined. She is going to understand that the old nuisance she discarded was actually the person controlling her destiny. And then what will happen? I smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had made a decision he was never going to regret. Then, Reynolds, my dear daughter is going to live with the consequences of having abandoned the man who gave her everything. And there won't be a second chance. There won't be forgiveness. There won't be reconciliation. But Mr. Patterson, she is your daughter. She was my daughter, I corrected him. The day she left me on my birthday, she stopped being my daughter. Now she is just a stranger who made the most expensive mistake of her life. I entered my room and closed the door. It was time to start making calls. It was time to set my plan in motion. Because there are things in life that aren't forgiven, my friend. And there are people who have to learn that every action has a consequence. My dear Jessica was about to receive the most expensive education of her entire life. That night, after dinner, I locked myself in my room and pulled out my cell phone. A brand new iPhone that Jessica had seen 1,000 times but thought I didn't know how to use properly. Because old people don't get technology. How wrong she was. The first call was to my lawyer, Attorney Thompson, a man who had worked with me for 15 years and knew exactly how to handle my affairs. "Good evening, Mr. Patterson," he answered on the second ring. "How are you?" "Very well, Thompson. I need you to come see me tomorrow morning. I have important decisions to make." "Of course. Where shall I meet you? At the office?" "No, I am at Serenity Meadows, the nursing home on the north side." There was silence on the other end. "At the nursing home? Are you okay? Did something happen?" "I am perfectly fine, Thompson. It's a long story, I'll tell you tomorrow. But I need you to bring all the legal documents for my properties and businesses." "Mr. Patterson, you're worrying me. Are you sure everything is okay?" "Everything is better than ever, Thompson. Finally, I see things with total clarity." After hanging up with Thompson, I dialed the number of my CPA, Mr. Miller. "Mr. Patterson, what a surprise to hear from you so late," he said. "Miller, I need you to prepare a full report of all my assets by tomorrow morning. Properties, bank accounts, investments, everything." "Any problem, Mr. Patterson?" "No problem. I'm just going to make some major changes to my estate." "Changes? What kind?" "The kind that are going to change a lot of lives, Miller. See you tomorrow at 10 a.m. at Serenity Meadows." The third call was the most important, to my general construction manager, Foreman Mike O'Malley. "Boss, how are you?" he answered with the usual respect. "Very well, Mike. Listen to me carefully because what I'm going to tell you is very important." "Tell me, boss." "Tomorrow, first thing, I want you to suspend all ongoing projects, all of them." "All of them? But boss, we have millions of dollars in construction underway." "All of them, Mike. And I want you to prepare a complete inventory of all machinery, equipment, and materials." "Mr. Patterson, can I ask what is happening?" "What is happening, Mike, is that I am going to completely liquidate the construction business." Another silence. "Liquidate? Everything?" "Everything. Every machine, every contract, every property related to construction. Everything is going to be sold." "But boss, that is a lifetime of work." "Exactly, Mike. It is a lifetime of work that someone very close to me decided was worth nothing." "I don't understand." "You will understand soon enough, Mike. See you tomorrow at 11. After those calls, I sat on the edge of the bed thinking about what I had just set in motion. It wasn't just the destruction of my businesses. It was the destruction of everything I had built to give my family a better life. But there was one more call I had to make, the hardest of all. I dialed the number of David, my oldest son, the one who lived in Chicago with his wife and 2 kids. The one who had always been more responsible than Jessica, but who also hadn't done anything to stop them from sending me to the home. "Dad?" he answered, clearly surprised. "How are you? Jessica told me you're already settled in the home." "Yes, David, I'm settled. And how do you feel? Is the place comfortable?" "Very comfortable, son. Your sister chose an excellent place to get rid of me." "Dad, it's not getting rid of you. It's just that—" "It's just what, David?" "It's just that, well, you know that Jessica and I have our responsibilities, our jobs, our families." "I understand perfectly, son." "Right? I knew you would understand. You've always been very understanding." "I am very understanding, David. So understanding that I have made a very important decision." "What decision?" "I have decided that you two are right, that I am a burden, that I am a load, that I am no good for anything anymore." "Dad, we never said that." "You didn't have to say it, David. Actions speak louder than words." "What are you talking about?" "I am talking about the fact that tomorrow I am going to start liquidating everything I have." "Liquidating what?" Everything, David. The businesses, the properties, the bank accounts, everything. I heard him move on the other end as if he had stood up suddenly. Are you crazy? Why would you do that? Because you are right. I am a useless old man who serves no purpose anymore. So I am going to act like one. Dad, wait. You can't do that. That money, those properties, they are our future. Your future? I laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. David, when you and your sister decided that I no longer had a place in your lives, you also decided that you no longer had a place in my estate. What are you going to do with the money? I'm going to donate it. All of it. To organizations that actually help elderly people abandoned by their families. You can't do that. Of course I can, David. It is my money. They are my properties. It is my decision. But Dad, we are your family. You were my family. Until a week ago, when you decided it was more convenient to pay a nursing home to take care of me. Dad, please, we can talk about this. There is nothing to talk about, David. You already talked. You already decided. Now I have decided too. Wait, don't hang up. When are you going to do this? I already started, son. Tomorrow I begin the legal paperwork. I have to talk to Jessica. Talk to whoever you want, David. But the decisions are already made. Dad, please. Good night, David. Give my regards to your wife and the kids. Tell them their grandfather loves them, even though they didn't have time to say goodbye to him. I hung up the phone and put it on silent. I lay down on that small bed in the nursing home, in that room that cost me $8,000 a month of my own money. And for the first time in a week, I smiled. Because tomorrow the most interesting part of this story was going to begin. Tomorrow my dear family was going to discover that the old burden they had abandoned had the power to change their lives forever. And it wasn't going to be a change for the better. At 6 in the morning the next day, my phone started vibrating like crazy. Call after call after call. Jessica, David, Jessica's husband, even my daughter-in-law from Chicago. But I had the phone on silent and didn't answer a single call. At 7, I went down to the dining room like any normal resident. I got my coffee and my toast. I sat at my usual table next to Phil and pretended to read the paper. Everything all right, Frank? Phil asked me. You look very calm today. Couldn't be better, Phil. It is a beautiful day to start over. At 8, Reynolds arrived, clearly flustered. He approached my table with a look of worry. Mr. Patterson, can we speak for a moment? Sure, Reynolds. But right here. I have no secrets. It's just that, well, your daughter has been calling the front desk since 6 in the morning. She says it is urgent that she speaks with you. Oh, really? I replied, taking a sip of coffee. And what did you tell her? We told her you were having breakfast and that meal times couldn't be interrupted. Very good, Reynolds. Those are the rules, right? Yes, but she says it is a family emergency. A family emergency, I repeated, and Phil looked at me curiously. You know what is curious, Reynolds? A week ago, my 80th birthday wasn't important to my family, but now they have an emergency. Reynolds looked increasingly uncomfortable. Mr. Patterson, maybe you should... I shouldn't do anything, Reynolds. I am just another resident. The rules apply equally to everyone, right? At 9, my legal advisors arrived. Attorney Thompson and Mr. Miller walked into the home, and Reynolds took them to a small conference room on the first floor. Good morning, Mr. Patterson, Thompson greeted me with a worried face. Can you explain what is going on? Sit down, gentlemen. I'm going to tell you a very interesting story. For the next 30 minutes, I explained everything. from the abandonment on my birthday to my decision to liquidate my entire estate. Mr. Patterson, Miller said when I finished, I understand your pain, but are you sure you want to do this? It is a very drastic decision. Very sure, Miller. I have never been more sure of anything in my life. And what are you going to live on? Thompson asked. I'm going to live on my pension, like any normal old man. After all, that is what I am to my family, isn't it? A normal old man who needs to be in a home. But Mr. Patterson. No buts, Thompson. I want you to prepare all the necessary documents. Sale of all properties, liquidation of all businesses, closing of all investment accounts. And the money? It is going to be divided among 3 charities that I am going to select, organizations that actually help abandoned seniors. At 10, Foreman Mike arrived. He looked completely confused and worried. Boss, can you explain to me what is happening? My supervisors are calling me since early morning asking why we stopped all the sites. Because there are no more sites, Mike. The business is over. But boss, we have contracts to fulfill, employees who depend on us. The employees will receive a very generous severance package. The contracts will be transferred to other companies. Everything will be done correctly. But why? Because I decided I no longer want to be in the business of building things for a family that doesn't value me. While I was talking to Mike, Reynolds entered the room nervously. Mr. Patterson, excuse me for interrupting, but your daughter is here? She arrived 10 minutes ago and is very upset. She's here? Thompson asked, surprised. Yes, Reynolds responded. She is in the lobby demanding to see you immediately. Tell her I am in a meeting and she will have to wait, I responded calmly. But Mr. Patterson, she says that… Reynolds, who pays for my stay here? Well, she does. Exactly. She pays for me to be here as a resident, and residents have schedules and rules. If she wants to see me, let her make an appointment like any normal visitor. Reynolds left and returned 5 minutes later. Mr. Patterson, your daughter says she is not going to move from there until you receive her. Perfect. Let her stay there as long as she wants. I continued with my meetings all morning. At noon, when I came out of the conference room, I saw Jessica sitting in the reception area. She looked desperate, eyes red, hair messy. I walked toward the dining hall as if I hadn't seen her. Dad, she screamed, jumping up from the chair. Dad, I need to talk to you. I turned slowly, as if I had barely realized she was there. Oh, hello, Jessica. What a surprise to see you around here. Dad, we have to talk. David told me what you were planning to do. Oh, really? And what did David tell you? That you are going to sell everything. That you are going to give away all the money. Everyone in the lobby was staring at us, other residents, visiting families, the staff. Ah, that, I said calmly. Yes, it is true. Any problem? Of course there is a problem. You can't do that. Why can't I do that, Jessica? Because it is our future. It is your grandchildren's inheritance. My inheritance? I laughed. Jessica, a week ago you decided that I no longer had a place in your life. Why should your future have a place in my money? Dad, please, we can fix this. Fix what, Jessica? Nothing is broken. Everything is working perfectly. It is not working. You are destroying everything out of spite. It is not spite, my dear daughter. It is justice. She came closer, lowering her voice. Dad, if it is about the nursing home, you can come back home. Everything can go back to how it was before. Like before? I looked her straight in the eye. You mean like before, when I was a nuisance in your life, when I was a burden you wanted to get rid of? I never said that. You didn't need to say it, Jessica. You demonstrated it when you abandoned me on my 80th birthday. It was for your own good, No, Jessica. It was for your own good. And now this is also for my own good. Dad, please. I am your daughter. You were my daughter. Until the day you decided your comfort was more important than my dignity. I saw her eyes fill with tears, but they weren't the tears of my beloved little girl. They were the tears of a woman who had just understood she had made the most expensive mistake of her life. Is there nothing I can do? She asked in a whisper. There is something you can do, Jessica. What? You can live with the consequences of your decisions, just as I am living with mine. Jessica stood there in the lobby for 3 more hours. From my second-floor window, I could see her pacing back and forth, talking on the phone, crying, begging Reynolds to convince me to speak with her again. But I didn't go down. I stayed in my room, signing documents with my lawyers, sealing the fate of everything I had built over 60 years of work. At 4 in the afternoon, Reynolds came up to see me. Mr. Patterson, your daughter is still downstairs. She says she won't leave until you listen to her. Let her stay as long as she wants, Reynolds. It's a free country. Your son, David, also arrived. He came in from Chicago. He looks very upset. David is here? Yes, sir. He arrived an hour ago. They are both in the lobby. I looked out the window and, sure enough, there was David with his sister, both talking in hushed tones, making desperate plans. Tell them that in half an hour I can see them in the lounge, but it will be a 15-minute conversation, no more. Reynolds went down and I kept signing papers. Attorney Thompson watched me with concern. Mr. Patterson, are you completely sure about this? Once you sign these documents, there is no turning back. Thompson, I have worked for 60 years to secure my children's future. A week ago, I discovered my children didn't want to secure even my present. It is time to close that chapter. I signed the last document. The complete liquidation of Patterson Construction, the company I had built from scratch. 60 years of work turned into numbers on a paper. At 4:30, I went down to the lounge. David and Jessica were waiting for me, sitting on the sofa like 2 scolded children. Good afternoon, I told them, sitting in the chair opposite. Dad? David started. This has gotten out of control. We can find a solution that nothing is out of control, David. Everything is perfectly under control. But you are destroying everything, Jessica shouted. 60 years of work down the drain. Not down the drain, Jessica. For you. Everything I built was for you. And if you decided that I am worth nothing, then what I built for you is worth nothing too. That is not true, David said. We never said you are worth nothing. No? Then explain to me, David, why, when your sister decided to dump me in a nursing home, you didn't do anything to stop it. David stayed silent. Explain to me why, when she told you they couldn't take care of me anymore, you didn't say, Dad, come live with me in Chicago. David lowered his gaze. Explain to me why neither of you thought that maybe your 80-year-old father deserved to spend his birthday with his family instead of being deposited in a facility like an old piece of furniture. Dad, Jessica murmured, we can fix this. How, Jessica? How are you going to fix the fact that you abandoned me when I needed you most? We are going to get you out of here. You can come live with either of us. Now? I laughed bitterly. Now that you discovered the old nuisance had money, now you want me to live with you? It is not about the money, David shouted. No? Then explain to me why a week ago it was impossible for me to live with you, but now that you are going to lose your inheritance, suddenly it became possible? Both of them stayed silent because they knew I was right. You know what is the saddest part of all this? I continued. It is not that you abandoned me. It is that you abandoned me so easily. without even trying to look for another solution. Dad, without even asking me what I wanted, without even considering that maybe your father had feelings, had dignity, had the right to an opinion on his own destiny. Jessica started to cry again. Dad, I am sorry. I regret it. It was a mistake. Yes, Jessica, it was a mistake. The most expensive mistake of your life. But can't it be fixed? David asked desperately. David, do you think if I had come to your house and told you, I don't love you as a son anymore, get out of my life, could that be fixed with an apology? No? Do you think if I had taken your children, my grandchildren, and abandoned them somewhere, telling them I don't need them anymore, could that be fixed? No, Dad. Then why do you think what you did to me can be fixed? Jessica got up from the sofa and knelt in front of my chair. Dad, please, I beg you, forgive me. It was stupidity. It was selfishness. It was everything you want, but forgive me. I looked at her there, kneeling, begging. The girl I had carried in my arms, whom I had given everything, whom I had loved more than my own life. And I felt nothing. Get up, Jessica. Do you forgive me? Get up! She stood up, eyes full of hope. Jessica, there are things in life that cannot be undone, words that cannot be taken back, actions that cannot be erased. But when you told me, Happy 80th birthday, Dad, I hope you'll be happy here, and left me at the door of this place as if I were trash, in that moment, you killed the father I was to you. It's a cold world when you realize the only thing binding your family together was the checkbook in your pocket. Yes, Jessica. In that moment, you decided I was no longer your father, that I was just a problem that had to be solved. But I regret it. Your regret doesn't give me back the dignity you took from me. It doesn't give me back the birthday you stole from me. It doesn't give me back the love you trampled on. David came closer too. Dad, we are family. We were family, David, until you decided I didn't fit in that family anymore. So, is there nothing we can do? Jessica asked. Yes, there is something you can do. What? You can learn to live without the money you expected to inherit. You can learn to work for your own future instead of waiting for your old father to hand it to you. And what are we going to be to you? David asked. I looked at both of them. My children. The reason I had worked all my life. The people for whom I had sacrificed everything. You are going to be what I was to you last week, I told them. You are going to be strangers. I got up from the chair and walked toward the door. The visit is over. You have to leave now. Visiting hours are over. Dad! Jessica shouted. But I didn't turn around. They weren't my children anymore. They were just two people who had made a mistake that was going to cost them everything. A week later, from my second-floor window, I saw Jessica arrive again. But this time, she didn't come alone. She came with her husband, Rick, with David's wife, and even with my 2 grandkids. They brought the whole family, the heavy artillery for a last desperate attempt. Reynolds came up to warn me. Mr. Patterson, your whole family is downstairs. They say they need to talk to you urgently. The whole family? Even the grandkids? Yes, sir. The children, too. How low they had sunk, using the grandkids as an emotional weapon. But nothing surprised me about them anymore. Tell them I am not available. I am busy with my legal affairs. Mr. Patterson, the kids are asking for their grandpa. Reynolds, those kids have parents who decided their grandpa wasn't important anymore. Let them talk to their parents about that. Reynolds went down and I kept reviewing the financial papers. In a week, News of the Patterson construction liquidation had hit the media. Successful entrepreneur liquidates empire and donates fortune to charity, one of the headlines read. 20 minutes later, Reynolds returned, more nervous than before. Mr. Patterson, your daughter says they are not going to leave until you come down to talk to them. And there are other residents complaining because the kids are crying in the lobby. Let them cry all they want, Reynolds. Not my problem. But, sir, Reynolds, do you know the story of those kids? No, sir. Those kids are 2 and 5 years old. 2 weeks ago, when it was my 80th birthday, do you know what their parents did? No. They didn't bring them to see their grandfather. They didn't call me to congratulate me. They didn't organize any family celebration. But now that they need something from me, now they bring the grandkids. Reynolds stayed silent. Tell them they have 5 minutes to leave, or I am going to call security to have them removed. Half an hour later, Reynolds came back up, this time accompanied by Mrs. Higgins, the head administrator. Mr. Patterson, Mrs. Higgins said, I am sorry to bother you, but the situation downstairs is becoming problematic. Your family refuses to leave, and they are disturbing the peace of the facility. Disturbing the peace? Your daughter is shouting, your daughter-in-law is crying, the kids are running everywhere, and other residents are complaining. I got up from my chair. Perfect. I am going down to solve this. I went down to the first floor and saw them all huddled in the reception area. Jessica had red, swollen eyes. David looked defeated. The grandkids were running around the chairs while their parents argued in hushed tones. What are you doing here? I asked with a cold voice. Dad, Jessica said, we brought the kids so they can see you. They miss you. They miss me? Since when? Since always, Dad. They always ask for their grandpa. Lies, Jessica. Those kids don't even know me well, because you never brought them before. The oldest grandson, 5 years old, came up to me. Grandpa, why are you mad at my mommy? I looked at him. An innocent child who wasn't to blame for anything. But I wasn't going to be manipulated through him either. I am not mad, son, I told him softly. I am just sad because your mommy and your uncle made decisions that hurt your grandpa a lot. What decisions? Jessica came over quickly. Come here, honey. Don't bother your grandpa. He is not bothering me, I said. But it is interesting that now you worry about him bothering me. When 2 weeks ago, you didn't worry about hurting me. Dad, please don't talk about that in front of the children. Why not, Jessica? Are you ashamed that your children know how you treated your father? Jessica's husband, Rick, who had been quiet all this time, approached. Mr. Patterson, with all due respect, I think this situation is getting out of control. Maybe we could look for a solution that... A solution? What is your name? Rick, sir. I am Jessica's husband. Rick, did you know your wife was going to bring me here on my birthday? Well, yes, sir. We discussed it as a family. And what was your opinion? Rick looked uncomfortable. I opined that maybe it was best for everyone. For everyone? Including me? Well, we thought you would be more comfortable here with people your age. More comfortable. Abandoned by my family on my birthday. It wasn't abandonment, sir. It was what, Rick? It was a practical decision. A practical decision, I repeated. And what is this now? Also a practical decision. This is, we are trying to fix things. No, Rick. This is panic. This is desperation because you realized your practical decision is going to cost you millions of dollars. David's wife, who had been crying silently, came over too. Mr. Patterson, we live in Chicago. We didn't know exactly what was happening. David told me everything when he got home that night. And what do you think of what your sister-in-law did? I think that that maybe it could have been handled differently. Maybe? I laughed bitterly. You know what I think? I think you are here because David told you that you were going to lose a multi-million-dollar inheritance, not because you actually care about my well-being. That is not true, David shouted. No? Then explain to me why in 2 years of marriage your wife never showed interest in my well-being before. David didn't know what to answer. Explain to me why none of you offered for me to come live in Chicago before knowing I was going to liquidate my estate. Dad, explain to me why these grandkids of mine who supposedly miss me so much have only visited me 3 times in 2 years. Silence hung heavy in the reception. You know what? I continued. At first, I thought you were just selfish. Then I thought you were ungrateful. But now I realize you are something worse. What are we? Jessica asked in a very low voice. You are hypocrites. You are people who pretend to love when you need something, but who abandon when loving becomes inconvenient. Dad! And the saddest thing is, you brought these innocent children to be witnesses to your hypocrisy. I crouched down to be at eye level with the oldest grandson. Son, did your mom explain why your grandpa lives here? She said you are sick. I am not sick, son. I am here because your mom decided she didn't want to take care of me anymore. Dad! Jessica screamed. Is it true or not, Jessica? Jessica stayed quiet. And now, I told the boy, your mom wants me to forgive her and give her back her inheritance. What is inheritance? It is money that parents leave to their children when they die. Are you going to die, Grandpa? We are all going to die someday, son. But before dying, I decided to give all my money to people who really need help. And my mom doesn't need help? Your mom is a very capable person who can work for her own money. Jessica came over and took the child by the hand. Let's go, son. Are we not going to see Grandpa anymore? The boy asked. Jessica looked at me with a mix of pain and hate. No, son, we aren't going to see Grandpa anymore. And that was how my own daughter confirmed what I already knew, that to them, I was only worth my money. Without money, there was no Grandpa. Without inheritance, there was no family. After they left, I sat in the reception area for another hour, watching through the window how life went on normally outside the nursing home. Cars passing, people walking, families who probably truly loved each other. And me there, an 80-year-old man who had just confirmed he had wasted 60 years of his life working for people who only wanted him for his cash. Reynolds approached after a while. Mr. Patterson, are you okay? He asked with genuine concern, something my own family hadn't shown. I am perfect, Reynolds. Never been better. For the first time in my life, I can see things exactly as they are, without the lies of family love. He sat next to me on the sofa where my family had been minutes ago. Do you regret anything? He asked me. Do you regret firing an employee who was stealing from you? I answered. No, of course not. Then why would I regret firing a family that stole something much more valuable than money from me? They stole my dignity, my respect, my place in their lives. The next day, Attorney Thompson arrived with the latest news on the liquidation. Mr. Patterson, I have the final reports. Everything has been sold successfully. The properties, the company, the investments, everything. He sat in front of me with a folder full of papers. The total liquidated was $43 million. $43 million. The fortune I had built thinking of my children's future, which was now going to become real help for people who truly needed it. And the donations? I asked. They are already being processed. 21 million goes to the Foundation for Abandoned Seniors, another 21 million to the Home for Orphaned Children, and the remaining million stays for your personal expenses here at the home until the end of your days. Perfect, Thompson. And do my ex-children know this? Your daughter Jessica has been calling my office every day. Yesterday she threatened to sue me if I didn't give her information about the process. And what did you tell her? I told her the truth, that you are in full possession of your mental faculties, that the decisions are completely legal, and that she has no right to claim anything. Good. Anything else? Yes, Mr. Patterson. Your son David has also been looking for me. He says he wants to hire his own lawyers to stop the process. Can he do it? No, sir. Everything is already signed and executed. The money has already been transferred to the charities. That afternoon, while I was in the garden reading, an unexpected visit arrived. It was the director of the Foundation for Abandoned Seniors, Mrs. Carter, a woman of about 50 with a genuine smile I hadn't seen on my family's faces in years. Mr. Patterson, I come to thank you personally for your donation. With those 21 million, we will be able to help thousands of seniors who are in situations similar to yours. She sat next to me on the garden bench. Can I ask what motivated you to make such a generous donation? My own experience, Mrs. Carter. I discovered that when families don't want their seniors, seniors need to create their own families. Did your family abandon you? My family taught me that family love only exists when there is money involved. Without money, there is no love. Without inheritance, there are no children. That must be very painful for you. At first, yes, but now it is liberating. Now I know exactly where I stand and who I can really count on. Mrs. Carter pulled some papers from her bag. Mr. Patterson, I have a proposal for you. Would you like to be the honorary president of our foundation? Your experience and your story could help many people in your situation. 3 days later, while reviewing the newspapers in the dining hall, I saw a story that made me smile for the first time in weeks. Entrepreneur liquidates fortune after being abandoned by children, the headline said. The article told the whole story. How I had built an empire working since I was 5, how I had sacrificed everything for my kids, how they had abandoned me on my 80th birthday, and how I had decided to donate my entire fortune to charities. The journalist had interviewed several people. Foreman Mike had said, Mr. Patterson was the best boss one could have. He treated his employees like family. It is a pity his own family didn't treat him the same. Reynolds had commented, he is a man of integrity who took a very brave decision. Many in his situation would have stayed silent for fear of losing their children, but he prioritized his dignity. Mrs. Carter from the foundation had declared, Mr. Patterson is an example that pain can be turned into purpose. His donation is going to change the lives of thousands of people. But the most interesting part of the article was the final part. The journalist had tried to contact Jessica and David to get their side of the story. Jessica had hung up the phone when they asked her about the abandonment. David had said, no comment, and had also hung up. Their own actions had left them without defensible arguments. How were you going to explain publicly that you abandoned your 80-year-old father on his birthday, and that now you are desperate because you aren't going to inherit his money? There was no way to look good in that story because they were the real villains. That night, Reynolds came up to my room with news. Mr. Patterson, your daughter was here an hour ago. She didn't want to come up to see you, but she left a message. What message? She said you won, that she hopes you are happy with your revenge, and that she will never forgive you for destroying her children's future. I laughed, a long, liberating laugh. Reynolds, do you know what is the most ironic thing about that message? No, sir. That she says she will never forgive me, when I was the one who decided not to forgive her. Even in her final farewell, she continues to believe she is the victim of this story. Reynolds said nothing, but I could see in his eyes that he understood perfectly. And about her children's future, I continued. Those grandkids she used as an emotional weapon to manipulate me. Now it turns out I am responsible for their future. Not their parents who can work and build their own estate, but the grandfather they abandoned. What are you going to do now, Mr. Patterson? I am going to live, Reynolds. For the first time in 80 years, I am going to live for myself. I am going to use the time I have left to help other abandoned seniors, to be president of that foundation, to make sure my money really serves for something good. And won't you miss your family? Reynolds, do you miss people who betray you? No, sir. Me neither, because they were never really my family. They were people who pretended to love me while it was convenient for them. 1 year later, I am sitting in the same garden chair at Serenity Meadows, but I am no longer the same man who arrived here abandoned on his birthday. Now, I am the honorary president of the Foundation for Abandoned Seniors, and every day I receive letters from seniors who have been helped with the money my ex-children expected to inherit. Letters of gratitude that are worth more than all the fake "I love you, dads" I heard for 60 years. Reynolds approaches with the daily paper. "Mr. Patterson, another story about you came out." In the society section, there is a photo of me cutting the ribbon on a new day center for abandoned seniors. The headline says, "Frank Patterson inaugurates 5th center funded by his foundation." It is the 5th center that has been opened with my money in a year. 5 places where seniors who were treated like trash by their families now receive dignity, respect, and true love. Do you know what is most satisfying about this, Reynolds? I ask him while folding the paper. That every dollar my children expected to spend on their luxuries is now turning into genuine smiles of people who really need help. This morning, a special letter arrived. It is from a 75-year-old lady in Detroit whose daughter abandoned her in a nursing home after selling her house. "Mr. Patterson," the letter says, "thanks to your foundation, I was able to return to my home and now receive the necessary help to live with dignity. Your story taught me that not all children deserve parents, but all parents deserve respect." Those words touch me deeper than any hug my own children ever gave me, because they come from someone who expects nothing from me, except that I continue being the person I decided to be. Phil, my table companion in the dining hall, told me yesterday that his daughter finally came to visit him after reading my story in the paper. Do you know what she told me, Frank? She told me that after reading what happened with you, she realized she was making the same mistake. "And did you forgive her?" I asked. I told her we could start over, but that things had to be different. Phil had the opportunity to recover his family because his daughter recognized her error before it was too late. But my children lost that opportunity forever, because when they had the chance to rectify, they only thought about the money they were going to lose. 3 months ago, Reynolds told me Jessica had come to the home asking for me, not to visit me, but to find out if I had changed my mind about the donations. "Did you tell her to ask me?" I asked Reynolds. "No, sir. She only wanted to know if you had left anything in your will for her." Until the end, only thinking about money. She didn't even pretend she missed me or regretted it. She just wanted to know if there was anything left she could inherit. That question confirmed I had made the right decision. Last month I received a legal notification. David had tried to sue the charities, alleging that I wasn't in my right mind when I made the donations. The judge dismissed the lawsuit in the first hearing. "Mr. Frank Patterson," the judge said, according to my lawyer, "showed more sanity and good sense in donating his estate than his children showed in abandoning him." Even official justice recognized they were the ones in the wrong. Yesterday I turned 81, This time it wasn't a day of abandonment and humiliation. It was a day of real celebration. The staff organized a small party for me. Letters of gratitude arrived from seniors all over the country. And Mrs. Carter from the foundation came with a cake that said, "Thank you for teaching us that true family is chosen." For the first time in 81 years, my birthday was celebrated by people who really appreciate me for who I am, not for what I can give them. During the party, one of the nurses asked me, "Mr. Patterson, do you ever regret what you did with your children?" "Would you regret putting someone in jail who stole from you?" I answered. "No, sir. My children stole something more valuable than money from me. They stole my place in the family I built myself. Why would I regret punishing them for that?" The nurse nodded. "Besides," I continued, "what I did wasn't revenge. It was justice. Revenge would have been hurting them to cause pain. Justice was taking away something they didn't deserve and giving it to those who did." This morning, while drinking my coffee in the garden, I thought about everything that had happened this year. I thought about Jessica, probably working a job she previously considered beneath her dignity, now that she doesn't have the guaranteed inheritance to maintain her lifestyle. I thought about David, explaining to his wife why they aren't going to have the big house they had planned to buy with my money. I thought about my grandkids, growing up without knowing they had a grandfather who would have loved them unconditionally if their parents hadn't decided money was more important than family relationships. But above all, I thought about all the people who have been helped with those $43 million. Seniors who now have dignity, orphaned children who now have education and opportunities, families who learned from my story and decided not to make the same mistakes. My money is finally serving to build real love instead of maintaining fake love. Reynolds approaches again. "Mr. Patterson, another letter arrived for you. It is from a family in Denver. Mr. Patterson, after reading your story, we decided to bring my father-in-law to live with us instead of sending him to a home. Your example taught us that family is demonstrated with deeds, not words." I smile while folding the letter. This is my true inheritance. Not money that my children were going to waste on luxuries, but lessons that are going to last generations. Families who are going to value their seniors because they knew the story of the man who refused to tolerate abandonment. And that is why, my friend, I say, it is never too late to serve justice. Now tell me, if it were you, would you have done the same in my place? And tell me also, what city in this world are you listening to me from? Because this story needs you to share it with whoever needs to hear it. The story you have just read is a work of fiction designed to provoke thought about family dynamics, financial elder abuse, and the consequences of neglect. While Frank Patterson is a character, the pain of abandonment in old age is a reality for many. It serves as a stark reminder that dignity is a right, not a privilege, and that the truest inheritance we leave behind isn't what's in our bank accounts, but how we treated those who gave us life.